Ferrari's success in the second half of 2026 depends largely on their brand new engine they are set to bring from the Monza Grand Prix. Rumours today that yes, it will arrive in Monza, certainly that is their plan, but what about the figures on the improvements in the horsepower? That has been the key question over the last couple of weeks because yes, it's a brand new engine, the Agio 2 upgrade, but if it doesn't deliver what they need, it's not going to matter regardless. But according to these rumours, it's a big horsepower improvement, and especially when compared to what we think Honda are bringing, there are serious tenths they're looking to unlock in the second half of this.
Ferrari breaks silence ahead of Monza GP with good news for Ferrari fans and bad news for Mercedes. Ferrari is reportedly ready to bring a major new engine upgrade to Monza with an expected gain of around 16-20 horsepower. That could be enough to put Ferrari's power unit on level terms with Mercedes or potentially even ahead. And if these numbers are accurate, Mercedes should take this as a serious warning. Ferrari are coming, and Monza could be the moment when the balance of power starts to shift. So let's break down exactly what's coming, why it matters, and what else is happening across the paddock heading into the second half of the season. If you're new here, hit subscribe, and let's get into it. Ferrari's second half of 2026 depends heavily on this new power unit. The plan as it stands is for it to arrive at Monza, and the rumors circulating today all but confirm that timeline. The real question has never been whether it arrives, it's how much it actually delivers. Ferrari have 2 Engine of the Year token upgrades available this season, because they started at least 4% behind the benchmark manufacturer. The first of those upgrades landed back in Austria. That one wasn't primarily about raw power, it was about reliability. It set the groundwork, tightened up the internals, and made sure the next step wouldn't blow up in their face literally. Some estimates put that first gain at around 8 to 10 horsepower. Now comes the real one. Multiple reports suggest the Monza upgrade will deliver roughly double the gain of the first, somewhere in the range of 16 to 20 horsepower. To put that in perspective, Honda's upgrade at Zandvoort is expected to be worth around 30 horsepower, and the general consensus is that translates to roughly 0.5 of a second per lap. Run that same rough math on Ferrari's numbers, and a 20 horsepower gain could be worth somewhere in the region of 3 to 3.5 a lap. Max Verstappen himself recently suggested Red Bull are only losing about a tenth to Ferrari's engine on power alone. If that's accurate, and Ferrari really do gain what's being reported, this upgrade could put them at the front of the power unit conversation entirely, potentially ahead of everyone, including Red Bull and Mercedes. It's worth remembering just how track-dependent all of this is, though. Monza is one of the most power-sensitive circuits on the calendar, but it's also one of the most energy-starved. The battery deployment side of these hybrid power units is charged largely by the engine itself, which means more raw horsepower actually increases the demand on the system rather than easing it. So this isn't simply a case of bolting on more power and expecting a straightforward lap time gain. Ferrari need the whole package: combustion power and energy recovery working together, and that's exactly why the Austria upgrade mattered so much as a first step. It wasn't flashy, but it proved the base architecture could survive under load, which is the only reason engineers feel confident pushing for a bigger gain now. Here's the twist a lot of people don't realize. Mercedes don't currently have the most powerful engine on the grid. That title is believed to belong to Red Bull. Mercedes are competitive, but not dominant on raw power, and that matters, because Mercedes still have 1 AO token left to use this season, and it's not confirmed whether they'll use it now or save it for an even bigger swing into 2027. That's a real gamble. If Ferrari's Monza engine performs the way it's being reported, and it proves reliable, Mercedes could suddenly find themselves outgunned on power at exactly the moment Ferrari also holds an edge in outright chassis performance on average. Ferrari have made real sacrifices on the engine side this year to protect that chassis advantage, and if the power deficit disappears too, that's a genuinely uncomfortable position for Mercedes heading into the run to the championship. Reliability is still the deciding factor, though. Ferrari have been remarkably solid all season, and that reliability is arguably the only reason they're still in this title fight at all. If it wasn't for that, Mercedes might already have pulled away. But this will be engine number 4 of the year for Ferrari, and it likely won't survive both cars through to the end of the season without a grid penalty at some point. Mercedes are in the exact same boat. They've already all but confirmed they'll need to take penalties too, most likely for Antonelli and probably Russell as well. So even if Ferrari get the power, they'll need to manage it carefully to avoid throwing away the gain with a costly penalty at the wrong race. There's an interesting parallel being drawn right now. although it's actually being applied to a different rivalry, Red Bull, and where they currently sit compared to Mercedes' difficult run through the ground effect era. Back in 2022, Mercedes eventually won a race in Brazil and were intermittently competitive for a couple of seasons after that, but they didn't fight for a title again until the regulations changed entirely. Whether that comparison holds for Red Bull's current situation is genuinely up for debate. The two organizations are structured very differently, and Red Bull haven't dealt with anything close to what Mercedes went through in that era. But it raises a bigger, more pointed question for the paddock as a whole. If a team is stuck fighting uphill for multiple seasons, how long is too long? Would Max Verstappen really wait years for a full recovery, even if that recovery is eventually guaranteed? That question becomes even more relevant with the 2027 regulation changes on the horizon. One of the more technical shifts involves the length of the plank on the floor of the car, the part that wears down over a race. The rules are being adjusted so that a higher rake design with more of a height difference between the front and rear ride heights won't cause the same plank wear penalties it currently does. That's significant because teams like Aston Martin and Williams have leaned into higher rake concepts this year without much reward. Next year, under the new rules, that approach becomes far more viable, and both teams have already said they're optimistic about what 2027 could mean for them. A few other storylines worth tracking heading into the back half of the season. Cadillac have confirmed a new team principal, stepping into the role Graham Lowden previously occupied alongside his other duties. The new man in charge brings more than 2 decades of Formula One experience, including a stint at Ferrari between 2002 and 2007 as an engineer, plus time working with the FIA. Most recently, he was executive director at Alpine. It's a strong statement of intent as Cadillac transition from their build phase into full competitive mode. Carlos Sainz says a decision on his future is coming shortly, possibly right after the summer break. Williams are reportedly prepared to nearly triple his salary from roughly $11.5 million to as much as $30 million a year to keep him in the seat. But there are suggestions Sainz has other doors open too, potentially at Alpine or Aston Martin. And some feel he's holding out in case a seat opens up elsewhere at the very top. Whether that's realistic is another conversation entirely, but the pressure on him to decide soon is real. And over at Aston Martin, the once tense relationship with engine partner Honda appears to be genuinely improving. Early in the season, both sides were publicly pointing fingers at each other. Now team leadership says performance and communication have both taken a real step forward, with several major upgrade packages still to come over the next few races. Some in the paddock even believe Aston Martin's chassis, after just one upgrade, is already among the 5 or 6 best on the grid. So that's where things stand heading into Monza, a Ferrari engine that could reshape the power unit hierarchy overnight, a Mercedes strategy gamble that might not pay off, and a paddock full of storylines still to play out before the season restarts. Let me know what you think Ferrari's real gain will be once we see it on track. Drop your predictions in the comments. If you enjoyed this, hit like and subscribe if you're new here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.